And, of course, the days that we are not out there, we are in studio Monday through Friday, and you can watch us online at YouTube. You could just go to Springfield's Talk 1041 or search that in YouTube and find not only the show live, but also archived shows as well. Almost every day is a glimpse into what socialism creates right here in America, New York City, of course, Mamdani. And I've noted that socialism, when it is implemented, or when you have an elected socialist like a Mamdani or a Bernie Sanders in charge in the U.S., the results of socialism really do get watered down because they are in a pool of a much more free market system, as opposed to when you take a country that is unto itself fully socialist, like Venezuela or Cuba or at the time the former Soviet Union, these countries that that are fully 100%, everybody is under the thumb of that political ideology, as opposed to putting someone like Mamdani in charge, in which he is socialist, and he can rely on the damage done being in the dollars needed in order to try and keep things limping along as best as possible. Taxpayers outside of his socialist regime, whether it be the citizens of the state of New York, outside of New York City, or federal tax dollars. China is actually another fantastic example of this when it comes to communism. Although they are their own country, look at their economy. They rely on free markets all around the world in order to exist. If it were not for free market economies like the United States setting up factories and shops and creating jobs in China, China would have collapsed a long time ago. People like to oftentimes, the pro-socialist and pro-communist folks on the left will point to China like, well, look at China. I mean, look how many people they have. Look at how they're surviving. Well, let's look at a China that has absolutely no jobs in China due to free market countries that have imported jobs into their country. China wouldn't exist. It would be North Korea. In fact, that North Korea is China without the relationships of free market systems outside of its border that China has. That being said, we still are offered glimpses of what socialism looks like in New York City. And there's a fascinating scenario that played out recently that, interestingly enough, was a display due to the free market system or funded by the free market system, but a visual display of what socialism looks like. And this is when you had Polymarket, which is Polymarket's one of those entities where you can do, betting. It's not necessarily sports betting, but just betting on anything. And they set up a pop-up free grocery store in New York City. Now, of course, it isn't free. It is paid for, but it's billed as free to the customers. This is the great dream of socialism. This is, either free food for everyone or food that is, quote, made more affordable, according to the government. And I want to share with you a story about how all of this played out because, again, it's a bit different in the sense that, and this is something Mamdani's wanting to do, but you have a preview of what it looks like when it is a private entity doing it, which we all know that when you have a private entity responsible for something, it is far more successful than when government does it, because if government fails, so what? They're still in charge, doesn't matter. Private industry doesn't have that benefit. But even seeing the results of private industry doing it, you get a real glimpse of what the people in New York City have voted themselves into. So I want to share that story coming up. Fox News has that particular story. And then it's going a bit viral. The future budget of New York City. And right now, Mamdani and Governor Hochul are going through this battle because he wants taxes raised on a state level. And she's saying we're not going to do that. And he says, well, I'll just raise the cost of living by way of property taxes for residents in New York City. Because, of course, if you ask any person on the left who supported Mamdani, they would say affordability, so he's immediately going to make it more expensive. He's already done that, but this is one of the many ways he's going to do it for the average New Yorker. People are beginning to make comparisons between states like New York City and Florida. In fact, Governor DeSantis recently compared the budget of just New York City versus all of Florida versus the population. And I think for a lot of people they've long voted Democrat, they start to look at these realities and think to themselves, why does it cost twice as much? Why do I live in a blue state in which they spend 2, 3, 4 times as much per person, yet the services are far worse than they are in Florida? Weather coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First Chief Meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well with a high near 72. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Friday, sunny skies with a high near 52. And taking a look at Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 47.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Leslie posted a review about her experience. Selling our mother's home was an emotional, stressful process. But Emily was exceptional at helping us navigate through each step. She gave meaningful input on how to best prepare the home in a way that would create the most value and appeal, and provided experienced perspective as we considered offers, and she carefully guided us through the closing. Choosing Emily to sell our mother's home was an excellent decision, and without hesitation, we would choose her again. And, you know, it's not an easy thing to do. I'm guessing that was, the selling of their mother's home because she had either passed or perhaps had to move on to a facility because she could no longer live in the home. And that's a very emotionally difficult thing to do. And when it comes to those difficult changes in life, Emily Johnson oftentimes is highlighted as helping guide through that. In fact, one of the other reviews that I like was someone who talked about they went out to buy a home on their own, but the seller was selling a home and had emotional attachments to it, and there were a lot of obstacles to where that seller's realtor was having trouble getting some of the decisions made, and so they contacted Emily, and Emily helped guide them through it, and even helped give advice to the realtor of the seller on how to really help in an emotional situation like that, and it was invaluable. So that's what you get. It isn't just Emily Johnson, the top-notch, one of the best realtors you're going to find in the 417, but you get a top-notch person as well, and it goes a real long ways. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Fox News has a story, strapped New Yorkers swarm chaotic Mamdani-inspired free grocery store pop-up. We're in pain. Now, this is such a valuable opportunity for people to see socialism at play. I say that. It must be understood, though, that what is different about this and, the food lines, the bread lines that you might see in, what was Venezuela, that obviously changing for the better, what you see in Cuba, what you would see in the Soviet Union, in which individuals become reliant on others to take care of them because they are in control. That it was a pop-up by Polymarket. So you had, now, to the quote, citizens, it's the same thing. They're being taken care of. It's, quote, free. But as you and I know, regardless of if it is a donation or if it is government taking it from others to give to others, it isn't free. Nothing's free. There's no such thing as free food. There's no such thing as free health care. It gets paid for. And while this pop-up is paid for by a private institution, private company, it still demonstrates on display what occurs when you have any sort of entity or institution that says, don't worry, we'll take care, we will be in charge of the flow of food. And we will decide who gets what and how much you get and how much you pay for it, be it $20 for a loaf of bread or $0, because we are so kind and generous. The story reads on Sunday. In a busy stretch of restaurants and boutiques in the West Village, hundreds of New Yorkers queued up outside a pop-up shop offering, quote, free groceries. New Yorkers are in pain, Nick from Queens, New York, one of the several people Fox News Digital interviewed outside the pop-up, said as he waited to grab pasta sauce, bath soap, and a bag of Tide Pods. The scene was underscored by the city's cost of living woes and anxiety over who would get a yellow ticket granting entry to the small shop before they, quote, sold out of goods. The pop-up was open February 12th as a 5-day store by cryptocurrency-based prediction market Polymarket. It came as Democrat New York City Mayor Mamdani advances a proposal for city-run grocery stores aimed at easing rising food cost and broader affordability pressure. It was billed as New York City's first free grocery store, with critics casting it as a stunt, riffing on Mamdani's proposal as the prediction market company faces heightened scrutiny from regulators in various states, including New York. So now the backdrop of this is Polymarket is apparently trying to, as they receive criticism and perhaps face regulatory problems by the government, are trying to sort of apparently beat out Mamdani at this plan of providing something wonderful to people. Mamdani, they see he gets elected. Oh, the people of New York City are so excited because one of the things that he's promising is that, don't worry, the city will take care of grocery stores. So they're like, boy, this is clearly a popular idea. This is so charitable, so wonderful. We'll come in and do it first. So this wasn't done in order to demonstrate how poorly all of this actually plays out. They did it because they felt this is something that people want. This is going to look great for us. Shoppers characterized the Polymarket, which was separate from Mamdani's led efforts to unveil city-owned subsidized grocery stores in each of the 5 New York City boroughs, as a learning moment for the mayor, as residents cited concerns with security, running out of food, and people cutting in lines. By the way, that's what happens in every single country that has government-run grocery stores. The giveaway drew residents from across the 5 boroughs, some arriving before sunrise, others showing up mid-morning in the hopes of getting a yellow ticket and a spot in the line wrapped around the block. As the crowd grew, however, so did the tension. People in line told Fox p.m. for another chance, and not to linger on the sidewalk as ticket holders moved through the store. Quote, "Let's go, people, let's go home," one security guard positioned outside the Polymarket was heard shouting to the crowds just after 9 a.m. Sunday. "Do not linger, do not look, do not watch, go home." Shoppers were told the pop-up would open at noon and close at 3 p.m. or until supplies ran out. Ticket holders were let inside a couple at a time and paired with a staffer to fill a blue tote bag at no cost. Polymarket funded and operated the pop-up, a company representative told Fox News Digital, and the prediction market also donated $1 million to food banks for New York City as part of the effort. The representative said Polymarket also gave $50 gift cards to some shoppers who ended up at the back of the line and were turned away in an effort to be as accommodating as possible. Some shoppers slammed the setup and the mad dash for tickets, while early arrivals said security kept the line safe. Quote, "Security's been phenomenal," said Nick, who was 4th in line and received a ticket without problems. So you notice when it comes to these sorts of things, the lucky people, the minority of individuals that actually get what it is that they were promised by the government. Oh, no, this is why everything's great. Everything's fine. That, incidentally, is how they sell socialized medicine. If there is a documentary done on socialized medicine or a news report that is wanting to paint it favorably, they find the individuals that had a good experience, and that's the person that's a representation of the experience as a whole. Nick, who was 4th in line, said security's been phenomenal this morning. There was a drunk guy over here harassing a lady, and I was telling him to go, and the head security guy, he saw that we were in trouble. He did his job, and he got him out of here, protecting us. Another local, Michael, told Fox News Digital, "I've seen a mix of things, like security needs to work on their presentation, dealing with the customer, who have a myriad of backgrounds because they don't have the customer service experience, or expertise, rather." Michael set up a chair outside the grocery store, watched shoppers file in and out of the shop all morning, but was not positioned in line, telling Fox News Digital that he only had 3 cups of soup left in his cupboard, but was doubtful there would be enough groceries left at the Polymarket at the end of the day for him to stock up his pantry. The line drew all walks of life, people on disability, working New Yorkers looking for a financial boost, residents shopping for the homeless, New Yorkers living in shelters, and others who did not speak English. Brooklynite Sumaya said she visited the pop-up earlier in the week and managed to grab 2 dozen eggs and butter before items started running out. Out of work for more than 2 months and currently on disability, she said a free grocery trip could spare her from spending roughly $600 a month on food and household essentials. Samaya said the process inside could feel uncomfortable to some, citing shoppers are paired with someone who moved them through the aisles. Quote, someone shopped with me and I kind of am uncomfortable with that. I also understand because sometimes you might have some people that want to overdo it and grab like 10 of something, but the person I was with, they kind of rushed me through things and I couldn't even get all the stuff I wanted. Even so, Samaya said her overall experience was pretty calm and quiet and called the pop-up very much needed in New York. She said the turnout alone showed how wide the need is spread and how quickly word of free groceries travels. Quote, I even met a woman that came from India yesterday and was like, how should I get this back on the plane? Samaya called on local leaders contemplating installing these city-run stores to ensure shoppers are safe as they wait in line for goods, including from neighbors unhappy with the lines, while Sherrod called for a potential city-run effort to be better organized and to learn from this. Nick added that such stores should be directly located in impoverished areas and food deserts far from the wealthy streets of Manhattan. Almost everyone in line, no matter if they got a ticket or not, sounded off that food costs in the city were sky high and they needed assistance. Quote, shoot, I used to spend an average of $300 to $500 on groceries, said Joaquin, who caught the A train to get to the market Sunday morning. I used to live with my mom, so that made it even worse. Right now I'm homeless. I live in a drop-in center. Another Big Apple resident, Monique, said she spent $200 on groceries the other day and didn't get much. Sherrod, who said he has a family of 4, put his monthly grocery spending at around $400 to $500, described the free groceries as a real help. Nick said choosing to wait for hours to get a ticket was worth it, noting it would save him on other expenses build up. I've switched to fast food and it's taking a hit on my health, he said, adding he was already a month behind on his phone bill because groceries come first. For the more than 300 individuals who did get tickets and moved through the door, they were thrilled with the haul. I got spaghetti and orange juice. I like orange juice, Nick from Queens said after making it through the store. I also got some ground beef. They had grass-fed ground beef. They also had lean ground beef and the regular ground beef. So I'm glad I got that. I'm really glad I got the grass-fed. Now, I want to make a few observations about this, but we do have to get a break. We've got traffic as well. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. All right, couple things. Had a great lunch bunch yesterday.
Yes, we did.
Some Republic folks, so they were high quality. Godfathers, the Springfield location. I still wish there was a Republic location. But the Battlefield one's closed. Now, we do our lunch bunch at the Springfield location where they've got the buffet. They also have a salad bar if you want to join us for lunch bunch at Godfathers on a Wednesday with up to five people of your choosing. Just go to ksgf.com, get registered there. You can also today, by way of text, register to win tickets to see Trace Adkins' 30-year tour, and that is a keyword that you text to the Pyramid Roofing text line, and the keyword is Adkins, A-D. K-I-N-S, as in Trace Adkins. Text Adkins to the Pyramid Roofing Company line, 447-KSG. Excuse me. And that will be your entry. We'll have another keyword with another pair for tomorrow as well. In the meantime, the keyword's Adkins to the text line for your chance to win. Traffic now.
Field's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks' first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well with a high near 72. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 52. And for Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 47.
Fox News did a story, we talked about this in the previous segment, regarding this pop-up grocery store from Poly Market in New York City that was doing a carbon copy of what Mamdani says that he is planning on having done, and that is these grocery stores that are run by government, and government's going to make it all affordable. They're going to put price controls on everything, and presumably that what they'll do is they'll buy the groceries with tax dollars and then sell it at a lower cost that the government deems as affordable. Now, does it actually mean that it's affordable to every person? That doesn't matter because government makes these decisions. They're the ones who are in charge. And what was demonstrated expressed hope that the government would learn from those mistakes and make it better. Now, you and I understand how hilarious that perspective is. Government never performs better than the private industry. Because in private industry, if you perform the way that government does, you cease to exist. So only businesses that provide goods and services that are an acceptable quality and price level for the consumer are the ones who survive. It's a great thing about competition. You have other options. I don't like the way they're doing it over here, so I'm going to go over there. So the over here has to figure out if there's a high volume of individuals leaving them to go elsewhere. They got to figure out what can we do to win those people back? How can we make it more of a value, whether it's of the product itself or the cost of the product to win those people back? It's constant competition. Government, of course, does not work that way. Government is take it or leave it. This is what it is. You don't like it? Okay. Where else are you going to go? This is why government does not perform in terms of the customer service, the product, the service on the same level as you get in the private industry. So to have a private industry institution put on display operationally a plan that Mamdani has and have people think, well, government will make it better and more efficient. Nope. Good luck with that. One of the comments that really stood out to me, and it is indicative of socialism. One of the individuals that eventually he got a winning ticket, so he was able to grocery shop for the free groceries. Nick said choosing to wait 4 hours to get a ticket was worth it, noting it would save him as other expenses build up. This is what socialism, communism, Marxism, fascism, any form of government that is the antithesis of free society. This is what it results in, such low expectations. The expectation's so low, waiting in line for hours is A-okay to get food. In a free market system in which there are competition, and the businesses have to make money in order to survive, which means they have to win you over as a customer. People find it unacceptable if they have to wait in line for 5 minutes to pay for groceries. Now, while some may say those are unrealistic expectations and it's a sign of a spoiled society and those are first world problems, well, maybe. But all that indicates it's because our expectations have been raised to that level based off of the overall quality of service that we currently receive. You go from an environment in which, for some people, the service level is such that having to wait in line for more than 5 minutes is unacceptable, to where you have an environment where waiting in line for hours is considered to be, well, that's just what it takes. I guess at least I got food. That is the attitude of citizens in countries like Cuba, the former Soviet Union, Venezuela, which of course is on the turnaround. Used to be the attitude of people in Argentina, which that has completely turned around with the libertarian President Milei, who kicked socialism, actually the people did through their vote, to the curb and has gone the opposite direction, and the quality of life has been accelerating at an impressive pace for the average person in that country. Now, those who still love the idea that somehow a 35-year-old guy who's spoiled and made videos for the bulk of his adult life because his mommy gave him money to do so can somehow magically figure out how to do something that no world leader has ever figured out. And that is to create an environment when it comes to groceries and goods, not necessarily isolated to food, but laundry and cleaning supplies. An environment in which everyone gets everything they want. There's no downside whatsoever. What they will do when you note the reality, they will point to, quote, capitalism, which is a free market system, and note that, well, there are hungry people under capitalism. There are poor people under a free market system. Having a free market system does not mean that everything is going to be perfect for everyone. It does not mean that every single individual are going to have their wishes fulfilled. A far shot, when you look back and step back, the one thing that you can know is that it certainly is better. And if you really look in and evaluate at the overall quality of life for individuals, when you are in a socialist country, a government-run country, there's not mobility from lower class to middle class to upper class. Where you are, that's where you stay. A free market system constantly has people moving from middle or lower class up to middle class up to upper class, and sometimes it goes the other way. But that's one of the fantastic things about a free market system is for a combination of reasons, people have the ability to alter their situation in life. You don't get that when you're living in a socialist regime. But again, if you are a person in power like Mamdani, moving into taxpayer-funded mansions and having bidets installed, what do you care? Whether it's Mamdani or Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, one thing every socialist leader has in common. When they acquire power, they suddenly start living like the upper crust. Not like those they claim they represent. And they constantly, through their policies, increase the cost of living for the average person. And this is the battle that's going on right now. Socialist New York City Mamdani clashes with Hochul over tax hikes as some critics warn of catastrophe. So right now, the battle in New York City, instead of being about how can we make things more affordable, how can we make it less expensive for people to live in New York City, it is a battle over how can we make it more expensive as opposed to less. Where are we going to get the taxes? From which people are we going to charge more simply for being citizens? Yesterday or the day before, Ron DeSantis Gateway Pundit has this headline: Florida Governor DeSantis adds mind-blowing perspective to Mamdani's budget woes in New York City. And I think for even many of you, just the real numbers here are going to be absolutely shocking. I want to share it now, or next, rather. I'm Nick Reed. We are doing the keyword again today. Every day a different keyword to win tickets for Trace Adkins' 30-year tour. And you text the word in. Now, if you're not getting something back, a response back, it's because you, in all likelihood, misspelled it. And Adkins is with a D. I mention this because I've noticed a number of So if what happens if you do it correctly, I don't see it. It goes elsewhere. But if you misspell it, then it doesn't recognize that this is a keyword contest, and so it comes directly here, up on my screen. And so I've seen a lot of you text, understandably so, ATKINS. It's ADKINS. So that's the word that you want to text to the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF for your chance to win tickets to that concert. Why'd you have to pick a hard word to spell like his last name?
Sorry, my bad.
I probably would have done that too. Hey, want to remind you that there are a number of quality pre-owned vehicles under $20,000 to choose from during the Max Your Tax refund at Pennegar Honda right now. Now, they have leasing deals that are fantastic, but even deals of purchase. I mean, you can get into a brand new 26 Honda HR-V Sport, $289 a month. And there's the 25 Honda Pilot, $3,000 off with rates as low as 2.49% and 1.49% on select certified pre-owned vehicles. So when you're talking about 1.49%, you're talking about vehicles under 20K, which are Hondas, so they're very reliable, and it's nothing, to get high mileage on them and still have them, you're taking care of them, driving just as if they're new. There's just a number of reasons to swing by and check out, especially as you do start to get some of those refunds in. Great down payment, lower those monthly payments. Pennegar Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. So there's a fight that is going on right now in New York City as Mamdani is trying to figure out how to make it more expensive to live there. And he is pushing the governor to get Albany to increase taxes on the more successful as well as corporations throughout all of New York. Now, of course, anytime you tax a corporation isn't a person with that their money comes from the customer. So a tax on a corporation, as much as you people on the left feel like you're really sticking it to them, you're sticking it to yourself, to the customer. You pay that. When you are buying a product, what do you think you are purchasing? You're not simply purchasing the product. You are purchasing the part of what that cost is, the employees that are being paid, their health care, the cost of electricity, the cost of insurance, the cost of rent for the building, the cost of water, all the utilities, and the taxes, because they that's where they get their money. Comes from the consumer. That's how it all happens. It is one of the biggest scams that the left has ever managed to pull off. And there are a lot of people, frankly, that are probably in the middle and even consider themselves Republicans that fall for this as well. Yeah, really stick at those. Look how much money they make. You're just increasing your cost. So Mamdani is pushing Hochul to do that, and she's like, I'm not going to be able to do that for the entire state. Not going to raise taxes on everyone throughout the state of New York because you want more money for the people of New York City. And so he says, fine, I'll just raise the cost of living here by nailing them with property taxes. I mean, all of you people, I don't understand what you don't understand about this. You folks who vote for Democrats, who vote for these people because they are going to make life more affordable for you. But the fight is over which way are they going to make it less affordable for you, either by increasing the cost of products by taxing corporations or increasing your cost of living by adding additional taxes to your property. This isn't a fight over how to make it more affordable. In New York City, they're fighting over which way to make it more expensive. We've got to get a traffic update. Then I want to share with you just some very basic numbers, and DeSantis pointed this out. The perspective of, how much per person it cost, to pay or to live in one versus the other in terms of the states and the city, and it's just mind-blowing. That next. HunterHardscapes.com recommend great time of year to visit their site, see what they can do for you in terms of outdoor living spaces, lighting, which not only is a tremendous upgrade to the overall visuals of your home, but what a safety feature. Folks who are prowling around at night don't like to go where they are seen. They try to hide in the shadows. Well, make no shadows available for them with that lighting and have it done absolutely right. Drainage also a huge issue. All of this absolute best top-notch you're going to find in the 417, and that is Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. The site's hunterhardscapes.com, and you can do an estimation calculator on a potential job. You can see before and after photos and also read reviews of real folks. Of course, I've told you my experience, and you can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Now, listen to these numbers. Mamdani's budget, his preliminary budget for running New York City, just the city, $127 billion. That is with a population of 8 million people. Governor DeSantis of Florida has noted that while New York City has 8 million people, Florida has, as an entire state, 23 million plus. And Florida's entire budget is $10 billion less than what Mamdani's budget is for just New York City. I did the math on it. That breaks down to, per Floridian, tax dollars, $5,086. Per just New York City resident with Mamdani's budget, $15,875. Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Our number two. For a lot of folks, doing the pre-planning, sitting down with a legal expert on how it is that you need to make sure you're prepared to leave your loved ones, whatever assets you may have behind, big or small. I mean, it could be something as simple as furniture or complex as land and businesses and assets, but it is oftentimes worrisome for a lot of average people because you think about billable hours and you think, well, how long is it going to take? Is this something that I'm going to visit with them and then they're going to take all of my information and get back with me, and then I get a bill for 8 hours just to find out what needs, where I pay a couple $100 for an hour for 8 hours just to learn what it is that I need to spend more money to do. And that is an obstacle for a lot of people. And Lori Rook and all of the folks at Ozarks Elder Law, they want there to be no obstacles for you to know what it is you need to do. So all of that work is a courtesy. They have 10 area locations to make it as easy as possible for folks in the listening area to get that done. Maybe just a little bit of time on your part. And you may think, I don't even know what questions to ask. They know what questions you need to ask. They know all of that. They're experts in the field. And to sit down and find out what you need to do in order to make sure that you and your loved ones are all taken care of, be it power of attorney situations or trust funds, wills, whatever it may be, transferring of property, no charge. That obstacle is gone, out of the way, so there's no excuse. 10 area locations, ozarkselderlaw.com. You start there to book that consultation, and should you somehow forget it, you just go to Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. We've got weather in a moment. Let's go ahead and kick over to news.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well, with a high near 72. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 52. And for Saturday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 47.
I want to go ahead and just kick it over to traffic a couple minutes early, but they are ready. That way we can get with Christy Fulnecki on the other side, as they say. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Christy Fulnecki joining us.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Hi.
Hello, Ozarks. Hi. Happy Lent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Got that out of the way.
Okay. That's right.
We were talking earlier just about New York City, and people don't realize
Oh, I know.
just the amount of
That used to be one of
taxes
the
that are
greatest
wasted.
cities.
Well, yeah, and this it. So what happens in New York, and you compare it to a situation like the residents of Florida deal with, should be a wake-up call to people that simply because more money is spent, that does not translate to better things when it comes to government. But I mean, you think about how we treat education. When you're running for office, how do you prove that you care more? Oh, you want to spend more money on it, right? I mean, that by default means that they care more. Oh, and if you hate education, then you don't want to spend more. Or, God forbid, you talk about cutting somewhere, and then that means you hate kids in education. Government increasing the amount of money that they spend does not translate to better things. And the proof of this, we were talking about the numbers earlier. Ma'am Donnie's preliminary budget for just New York City comes out to almost $16,000 per person in terms of like the tax dollars that are spent. So, and that's not how much it, I mean, I guess you could look at it either way. Oh, well, that's what it cost in tax dollars per person. But also, well, that's theoretically how much they should be benefiting, right? Because that's how much is spent. Right. And Ron DeSantis pointed out for the entire state of Florida, which has like 3 times the amount of people, their budget, their budget overall is $10 billion less for the entire state versus New York City, and it comes down to just over $5,000 per person. So they spend per person in New York, just New York City, 3 times as amount in tax dollars than Florida does for every single person in Florida. No one is going to tell you that the quality of life in New York City is better.
No, I'm telling you.
This is why people leave.
This is so insane.
And I remember, I think it was on with Bill Maher. It was some left-winger on Bill Maher a year or two ago talking about being a New Yorker and how, he noted, of course, he's believes in, big government and all this stuff. He said, but he can't help but note that despite the fact that he pays like, 2-3 times more in taxes in New York City, it is not 2 or 3 times better. It's worse than it is in Florida. And how, because he was arguing that Democrat mayors and governors are really screwing up when it comes to, well, it's not a screw up. This is their policy. It's not like an oopsie daisy. This is what they do. But he was noting, just as a real person, it costs so much more. They spend so much more, but the outcome is far worse than in states like Texas and Florida.
Yeah, and have you been there? Have you been to the city, to New York?
It was a long time ago.
We just went there, I think, 2 years ago, and took all the kids, and had a great time. But if you think about I don't know what the square footage is. It is not a big place at all. Right. I mean, you have the island, the boroughs. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is not. And then you have water there, so that takes up space. So you're thinking, I don't know what it is, but look at the square footage of Florida versus New York. I mean, so, half of your budget in the city is for public safety, or it should be. So you have public safety on, a 20th the size of Florida. I don't know what it is, but to me, that is insane. I mean, it's so crazy. And you think that there's so much, it's so fun. And with Broadway and Times Square and the Statue of Liberty, there's so much to do there. It's just a shame. And now,
Florida has hurricanes. They have hurricanes in it still.
Right. Major natural disasters. But it's a shame that all of this is, the past few weeks are showing that the snow mounds, that people can't drive through some of the streets, and the human feces in the street. That is,
well, it's socialism. This is what every socialist country looks like. And so it has not taken him long. I will give him credit. He is moving along at a pretty fast clip. But I try to get people through analogies to really, I know most people listening get it, but you just desperately want to reach these people on the left, even though it is a fool's errand so often. But it's like if you had 2 restaurants, one of them cost 3 times as much, but the service was 2 to 3 times as bad. would you continue to go to no, you'd be
Yeah.
angry. You'd be the first ones online ripping them, saying, if I could give 0 stars, I would. And how do they think they can get away with charging so much whenever over here is so much better? Yet they vote for people to be in charge, to do that to their lives, to do that to
Well,
the
and
places that they live, to make it 2 to 3 times more expensive, to spend 2 to 3 times more of their tax dollars, yet the outcomes are 2 to 3 times worse.
and to have a business there, I mean, you'd have to literally be insane. You'd have to have some kind of government subsidy to be able to stay there, because I mean, the amount of taxes that you pay, that's just so crazy.
Well, and that's what. Oh, and incidentally, one of the Mamdani's plans for. I forgot if it was what it was going to be, but it was supposed to be vouchers or something, to sort of, to your point, to subsidize. Well, turns out that he doesn't have enough money for that, even with the more
Yeah, where
money
you
that
gonna
I
get
know.
it?
It's just, and then when they do spend more, it just adds to the problem. I mean, that's what reasonable people understand, is that, so they're like, well, okay, it's so expensive to live here, so that means we're going to give you more money in order to offset that. And that just makes the problem worse. This is what they don't, it adds to the overall inflationary aspect of things. He also set up this new, I forget what it's called, but basically these town hall style meetings that are going to be run by the city of New York, in which people can come and publicly lodge complaints against their landlords, except for those that are run by the city.
I was just going to say, can you
Yeah,
lodge a complaint
nope,
against the city?
Nope, not allowed
That's
to.
the first thing
Yeah,
I thought
all
of.
of these
Yeah.
buildings that he has put under I forget the name of the organization, but that the city is taken over and Mamdani's in charge of ultimately, those residents are not allowed to complain, despite the fact that overwhelmingly the number of not just complaints, but like late on fixing problems exceeds by far the private landlord complaints. So
Why
I mean,
would
but
you
this
wanna
is
do why would you want to do that to yourself? Unless there's a major market correction, you go in there and buy a bunch of property. But I mean, speaking of business, when you walk around Wall Street, it is like a ghost town during the day. And when we were there, I don't know maybe the first time I went there was, I think, 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, you would see, the financial district, people had suits on. It's like the movies.
Yeah.
People are walking everywhere, whatever. And my accountant is in New York. And I mean, you would see people just all over the place. And now it is crazy. And we did a tour of the financial district. There is no one there. And they said, yeah, a lot of people have moved out of this area. The financial district, the most important financial district in the world, and people have moved out of Manhattan because it's too expensive.
But at least you can wake up at 5 a.m. to hear the Muslim call to prayer echoing through the streets 5 times a day. So there's that.
Well, I thought it was when Mandami had that press conference, wasn't it? When he had the big chart, was that yesterday? I don't know. He was explaining the tax increases, and I thought, and then he's like, and then we're going to increase your property tax, and he went through this chart, and I thought, well, at least he's being honest. He's not trying to. Yeah, right. I mean, he's not trying to sugarcoat it. He's like, here's our budget. We don't have any money. Here's the numbers, and then we're going to increase this. And I thought, whoa. He is not sugarcoating. He just came right out and said, I'm going to take all your money.
You just almost marvel at how stupid people can be. That and
oh yeah, I know.
The people.
Yes.
So,
AOC flashed in my mind real fast.
Yeah, the number one motivating factor for people who said they voted for him was affordability, and like out of the gate, he's also going to expand the paid parking meters to collect, I think, like $1.3 billion out of the private economy. So he's going to start screwing people over with that. And now the increase in just to live in your own property and property taxes, to have your own property. He's going to make it more, apparently in Mamdani's socialist world, you're wealthy if you're able to own property. Like that, that's how low the standard becomes, and it always gets lower and lower and lower. And I'm telling you, I think it was 80% of New York is liberal, but I think the vote amongst women for him was 80% because they're liberal women. They're nuts.
Gosh,
They
that's
they really
crazy.
truly are they're like torpedoing this country because of their hysteria and emotionally driven irrationality. And
Well,
I don't think there's any like one you the stark difference between a normal conservative woman and a liberal woman, it's so
oh, believe me,
vast.
I know.
It's further than any other demographics ideology. So like you take a guy on the left versus right, there's obviously differences. You take a conservative black person versus a liberal black person. You take a conservative gay versus and none of them are as far apart as left and right women.
Yeah,
Like you get some of the most
and the way
intelligent,
they look.
strong. Oh yeah, well,
To say our looks.
but I'm telling you, liberal women, they're nuts. They are insane.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You know, what I want to know is how do you run a restaurant in New York under those conditions? I mean, how do
Yeah.
you have employees? I've always wondered that because you're walking down the street and you're like, what motivate? I mean, it used to be, in some of the Italian areas having, the family run business, but how in the world do you do that now? I mean, I don't even know how you afford it. I'm just, and to think, I think of these things when I was walking through New York. I mean, obviously there are a lot of tourists, and tourism is a big part of their economy. But then I'm thinking, what kind of job do you have to live here? Because I know when we lived in D.C., you have to live, especially if you have kids, and both parents have to work. You have to live so far out to be able to afford anything and commute into the city. So you think people that live in New York City,
Well,
what are you
that's
doing? I mean, are you
right.
professors? Is
So
everybody like in the university system?
what
You
happens,
know?
and this happens in every socialist country, you have the there's a very consolidated group of people connected to government that are very wealthy, and the middle class gets eviscerated, and they all become
Yeah.
lower income. And that, I mean, that's what happens. You don't have middle income in countries like Venezuela or Cuba. It is everybody's poor. You look at New York City. I mean, this pop-up grocery store we were talking about. So what you end up with are those that are very wealthy, and then people who are just relying on freebies and handouts because they can't afford to leave.
Yeah, right.
The people who do flee are some of the wealthy, and then the middle class that can still afford to get out. But the people who are poor, they're stuck there. They're stuck
Oh
in the
yeah,
bad
that's right.
schools. They're
Yeah.
stuck in the crime-ridden areas. They're stuck, and then they become reliant on free transportation, which is made extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
So you are literally making them just to get around, put their lives on the line. And we're told that that somehow is the pathway to compassion and this great utopian society. It's insanity.
And now you don't have Good Samaritan laws.
Yeah, I
So
know.
you can't
Right.
be a Good
Yeah.
Samaritan on a subway in New York anymore. So you're kind of stuck.
What an absolute mess. We got Chrissy
Yeah.
Fulnecki here. More coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs. The Carrickers, their team standing by, and they're the loan equivalent of Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, which of course they work together, which is a tremendous amount of help as well if you've never been through that process. But they just really do provide a level of service you don't get elsewhere. So whether it is the first time out of the gate home buyer home loan, or you've done it 1,000 times over, maybe some refinancing is something you just want to explore, or even reverse mortgages. I want a great homeloan.com because you do. I have just such a hilarious story. I want to thank Ed. Ed actually texted this in. And it's a piece on Twitchy. And so you know that there are these different the group chats that have been set up by the left in order to monitor ICE. So they, can help people who are in this country illegally, primarily violent criminals, evade capture. And I hadn't thought of this. I'm not a member of any of these groups. I know some people who are conservative. They get in there just to sort of observe what's going on. Well, it makes sense that you're going to have a significant number of Spanish-speaking people in there. And also a significant number of individuals that's their first go-to language, and perhaps even some that's the only language they speak. Well, it is causing some great conflict, apparently, in some of these group chats because there are liberals that don't speak Spanish that are bitching about the fact that they can't understand, and they are asking that everyone speak English in these chat rooms.
Oh, are you serious?
I'm absolutely 100% serious.
English first,
Twitchy,
ladies, liberal ladies.
Yeah, Twitchy has a story. Hypocritical lefties demand English only in their own sanctuary ICE warning group chat. And so in the story, it's posted snapshots of some of these people on the left griping about the fact that they can't understand, and there needs to be one language spoken in those. And it's English.
Is like,
these are the same people that blocked off their put quote borders in some of the neighborhoods. And we played audio from a local story where they were interviewing these liberals about, well, how do you feel that your neighborhood's been blocked off? They're like, well, I think it's good that we have people here keeping us safe with these boundaries. Like, how can you be so ignorant as to not recognize your own idiocy, your own hypocrisy?
They're just crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. There was some donor on I can't think of what it was, but they were interviewing. He was a Democratic donor, and was talking about how they just wanted Kamala to go away. And he was saying, and he was saying that he's like, none of us want her. I guess the ones that are the donors.
Yeah.
And he said, well, there's two kinds of Democrats, and I'm a Bill Clinton Democrat, and all these other people are just wackos. And I thought, are there really any donors left that are Bill Clinton donors? No. I mean, to me,
now that Epstein's dead, no.
I know, that's right. Yeah, I know.
Well, but what has happened is particularly not the big donor class so much, but just the active base. They have become dependent on, like, all of their beliefs are just what is anti-Trump.
Yeah, right.
What is anti-Republican? That is how they now determine. That's how they become pro pornography in elementary schools and pro the 80-20. All these issues in which they're on the 20% side. These are issues these were not contentious issues once upon a time. We did not have any sort of disagreement. In fact, it wasn't even a discussion as to whether kids should get sex change operations. Anyone would have said that's insane. But the moment that you have like one crazy person that suggests it, and so Republicans are like, yeah, no. Democrats suddenly are like, well, if Republicans are against it, we're for it. And what that then causes is, instead of these Democrat candidates being chosen because they are more reasonable, they're more moderate, they have a track record of success, or they could win in a general election, it's whomever do the Republicans gripe about and criticize the most. And that's how you have Kamala Harris leading the polls right now, followed by Gavin Newsom and Ocasio-Cortez. So who are the three Democrats that get the most mocked, the most criticism from Republicans? It's those three,
and that's idiots of their whole party.
Yes, but that's irrelevant to the left is so fueled by hate that the moment they see, Trump or J.D. Vance or anybody in MAGA America pointing out Kamala Harris as an idiot, that makes them want her because they think it'll really show them. They'll hate it if Kamala Harris, because they hate Kamala Harris. And so they're just driven by their perception of whomever Republicans hate, that's who we're going to support. And that's why, and the ones that they perceive as Republicans hating are the ones that they're always talking about and criticizing because they're idiots. And so that's how you have shifted from, and this has really been post-Obama era, the Democrats picking their leadership that are a bunch of morons.
I mean,
Mamdani's another example.
I know.
I mean, you had even the New York Times. We forget this during the primary. We're saying Mamdani is not a good choice. Democrats do not choose Mamdani, and you had some elected Democrats just based off his anti-Semitism saying in New York, do not vote for this guy. But because Republicans were constantly talking about Mamdani and how he would be the absolute worst choice, that's who they lined up to support.
And then people keep hearing free stuff.
Oh yeah, well
I'm gonna get free stuff. I'm gonna get free housing. I'm gonna get free. Then you have that issue.
Oh.
I mean, but you can't choose probably 3 people that are any worse in their party. I mean, it would be hard to find it.
Yeah.
I mean, this stunt that AOC, I'm sure you've already talked about it in Munich. And her being interviewed, I thought, I am so embarrassed for her. I mean, as much as I don't like her, I thought, I am so embarrassed that she took 20 seconds or something. It was the longest pause in the face of American politics to answer a question about Taiwan. I'm like, she does not.
And they can tell, but it's not just her. Like Slotkin was over there, one of the seditious 6. That Trump is an authoritarian dictator and all that. But in their minds, the way that they're perceived is not reality. And while a lot of these world leaders may prefer the U.S. to have leadership that can be taken advantage of, they at the same time are realistic, and they know that Trump is successful at what he does. Yeah. That's why they have deferred to him when it comes to so many of these, like the Middle East and Iran, when it comes to Ukraine, fully and openly saying, whatever, Trump is the guy. He's the only one that could. So, they recognize that. And so when they hear people like Ocasio-Cortez, who they know is considered a favorite for the Democrats to be president, or they hear idiots like Slotkin over there going on and on about he's an authoritarian dictator, they know.
Yeah,
they know the reality of what we. I mean,
it's just funny because you looked at all their faces and you're thinking, they're like, please, someone say something.
I got some.
Someone please help her. This country is located.
I don't think anyone wanted to be pulled down with her. It's like when you see someone drowning, you're like, oh, or
down by yourself.
We got a traffic update here. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist, Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well with a high near 72. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 52. And taking a look at Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 47. And it's review time for my friends over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Amanda wrote, Foreman Mechanical was super fast to respond. They were honest, really nice, and they had respectful techs. I will recommend them to everyone. And honestly, that is what you get with the Foreman team. They are always upfront and honest when it comes to the work that needs to be done, and they're not pushy either. If you would rather repair versus replace, they are going to work with you. If it's time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. It's a good time to have them out since spring is right around the corner. They can help you out with all of your indoor air quality services and annual maintenance needs. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Christy Fulnecki with us.
Yes.
Text in from Ed. He was our lunch bunch winner yesterday. Said to tell you hello.
Oh, hello, Eddie.
He is
Thank
one
you.
who likes you.
Oh, that's good. Check. It's a love or hate thing.
Yes.
Thank you,
That's
Eddie.
what I
really
told him.
Appreciate it. Oh, that was probably an interesting conversation.
No, he and his family really liked you.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, they were a great lunch bunch.
Very nice.
Yes,
Oh, that's
yeah.
sweet.
I wanted to play some fantastic audio. So the East Room yesterday, Trump was there celebrating the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. I did not know it had been around that long, first off.
Whoa. I didn't know that.
I
saw
figured
the-
it was something that probably started in the 80s or 90s, and I didn't know this.
Wow.
Very interesting. 100th anniversary. And he had a number of folks up there. He talked about Nicki Minaj. I'll play that audio here in just
Oh,
a
I didn't
bit.
see that
Yes,
one.
this
Okay.
is good.
You're going to love it.
Okay.
But yes, that's Sarah sent this yesterday. She goes, can we please listen to this when Christy's on? Absolutely, we can. Indeed. Also, there was a woman, Floricia Cook, and she had a 22-year-old grandson who was brutally murdered. So, like
It's really good.
Like,
I heard her
yeah,
talk,
like a lot of folks who are in the inner cities. It's people of color. It's black people that are the disproportionately high victimhood, in terms of numbers of these left-wing policies.
Right.
And so I want to play, but I want to note here, just so people aren't confused, because she was talking about Trump having constituents come to his house, and I don't know that she meant constituents. I'm not sure what I think she was meaning staffers, but anyhow, I only mention it because she says it a couple times. I was like, why is she saying constituents? But nonetheless, that's not what's important here. So as we continue to hear people claim that Donald Trump is racist, Donald Trump hates black people, I thought that this is potentially one of the greatest, albeit short, speeches from a black American regarding Donald Trump.
About him, he keeps it real, just like Grandma. I appreciate that because I can trust him because he tells exactly how he feels and what he thinks. Thank God for this president. I am filled, my cup runneth over. Because he allowed his constituents, his people to come to my house to interview me, to talk about the murder of my grandson. It seemed like nobody cared. I'm an advocate for murder. I marched. I rallied. I pulled out other families in the District of Columbia that had murders and did not have answers. Ooh. We marched and we rallied, and nobody heard me, Democrats, get mad at me. Until this Republican sent his constituents, his people out there to interview me in my home. Have you ever heard of a thing? Then they invited me twice before Congress to testify for the beautiful bill that's going to change crime in the district. If you kill somebody, okay, you take a life, you do life. Just that simple. If you do a harsh crime, you do harsh time. Just that simple. And if we need National Guard, and which we did years ago, he brought it on. I love him. I don't want to hear nothing you got to say about that racist stuff. And don't be looking at me on the news, hating on me because I'm standing up for somebody that deserves to be standing up for. Get off the man's back. Let him do his job. He's doing the right thing. Pick up off him. And Grandma said it.
Now, as I watched that, I thought to myself, that might have been one of the only times I've seen Trump almost speechless. Well, like he's standing and and he has this look on his face like, like,
amen, sister.
yeah, but at the same time, sort of like, boy, she's really laying it on. Not a bad thing at all, but he tends to, when he is being praised, has this look of, uh-huh. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. There's just something different about, like, he was almost not taken aback. It was just different.
He was very surprised. He had a very surprised look on his face.
Yeah, and she wasn't the only one. And so, at the same time, then I'm watching CNN. Governor Wes Moore, Democrat, Maryland, and he's a black governor. And on CNN, he was asked if he thinks Trump is racist, and of course he lists all the reasons that he thinks that he is, and he said, I think it's a question for white Americans if they're looking at his actions. And I'm thinking, no, that woman's talking about his actions.
Yeah, right. Those are the people that live in the city.
Those are the people who live in the city. Those are the people that benefited most from him sending National Guard into areas like, and that's what she's talking about here. And this is one of the areas of such great frustration. We would play audio of black women around that period of time that were making posts
that's what I was thinking about,
that were really rimming on left wingers and particularly women. There was one in Chicago that all this white privilege of your neighborhoods that are safe, and when Trump is trying to actually fix the problem for us and make it safer so our kids can walk to school without fear of being shot by gang members, you all are trying to stop him.
Yeah.
Then they talk about action, and it's these people on the left do not care about black people. They do not care about minorities. They don't care about girls, and there is no one as president in modern history that has done more for the safety of the average black person, which is part of quality of life, than Donald Trump has when it comes to crime. And the massive plummeting of crime that has occurred, and it is lower income and black people who have benefited from it the most. And to have people on the left running around saying he's a racist,
yeah,
he's really bad at it if he is.
Yeah, and many of those people interviewed that you played in that have been in the media have talked about, these white women that are talking, they live in their gated neighborhood in that nice area of town, and we're all living in the inner city, and he's trying to help us. Yeah. That's where the crime affects us, is where we live.
And if that exact same thing had been occurring, but it was during the Biden administration, MSNBC, CNN, the networks would have carried it live. It would have been carried live. And then they would have juxtaposed it against what Republicans, how they are racist and so forth. But I guarantee you none of that, not only not live, none of that's going to be aired on CNN or MSNBC or these other, none of it will.
Well, especially the video, because when she was talking, the room was packed.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were all minorities, and they were all like putting their hands up in the air.
Church.
And it was, everybody was cheering. I thought, that's amazing.
Donald Trump's comments on Nicki Minaj next with Christy Fulnecki. I'm Nick Reed. Christy Fulnecki
This-
is with us. Here
Yes.
is Donald Trump. Was this at the same event?
Yes.
Okay, so this yesterday, the 100th anniversary of Black History Month, and Donald Trump proving again that there are some things he fails at. Being a racist is one of them, because he was honoring the 100th anniversary of Black History Month at the White House, and here he was, among other things, talking about Nicki Minaj.
She was here. She was so beautiful. Your skin's so beautiful. I said, Nikki, you're so beautiful. Her nails were like that long. I said, Nikki, are they real? She said, she didn't want to get into that. But she was so beautiful and so great. And she gets it, more importantly, frankly, she gets it. I love Nicki Minaj.
Just repeat. So I love it.
So beautiful.
Her face, her nails.
Hilarious. Oh my gosh.
You know, Reagan,
She's-
one of the personality traits of Ronald Reagan that was widely recognized is that he never really seemed out of place around anyone. Like he looked
Yeah.
in a suit, he looked natural and authentic. On a horse, he looked that way. With like a jean jacket around workers. It wasn't like a lot of times you see people on the left in
Yeah, right.
particular, they try to, and it's just like, eh.
It's 'cause it's
But
fake.
but I think Trump also is that way. With now, but I would say now if Trump showed up, with a jean jacket and stuff, but I don't think he would do that because that's not him.
Right,
But just in terms of people that he is around and people that he talks about liking, like him talking about Nicki Minaj that way, that is, not a put on. That's, he's just a guy that really does like people,
Yeah.
contrary to what people who hate him want to believe. And so, whomever, it's like he is open to really liking absolutely anyone, any walk of life.
Well,
Whether you're the
before-
richest celebrity in the world or you're just, the downtrodden guy out on the streets.
Before he became a Republican, everybody liked him.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, all those liberals. Yeah, because he helped people. I mean, he would go out and pay loans off of people's homes. He would go help people in Hollywood.
Well,
I
we
mean,
played yesterday or the day before Jesse Jackson passing. Jesse Jackson honoring at an event Donald Trump and talking about how no one has done more for the black community than Donald Trump. And I mean, it was just going on and on about how wonderful he was and how he was the one that saw opportunities for people of color. And yeah, but of course that was before he was running for president as a Republican.
Yeah.
And it just, again, demonstrates, particularly for people on the left, they don't really care about the issues. It's all tribalism for them. And if you are on that side over there, it doesn't matter how much they've lauded you in the past or lionized you or talked about how wonderful you are and paid you to go to their weddings, like, I think they did with Chelsea's wedding or Hillary or some wedding. I mean, they'll turn on you. And then it's not just they turn on you because you're on the other side. Suddenly, everything you do is bad. Suddenly, you're evil, whereas before you weren't.
Yeah. Well, and he doesn't have to fake being gracious and being a good person because he always has. Because in one of his books, I remember it did talk about, how it was some incident that a lady, her car was broken down and they went back and helped her and ended up paying her mortgage off. I mean, there are so many of those stories about how he's helped people through his life.
I think he got some of that from his dad. And I read once, and maybe he talked about in an interview a long, long time ago, that his dad would always carry cash on him to give to people on the streets if they needed it. And there was a story, and we aired this audio too at one point. It was some woman from some time ago, and she was talking about how Trump, this was well before he was running for office, but he's walking through the streets of New York or New Jersey, wherever it was, and she was a black woman, kind of homeless, and she was going to kill herself. She was crying as she was making her way to the bridge, and he stopped and asked her what was wrong and talked with her, and she needed some money, gave it to her, but she talked more about what was important is that he talked to her and talked her through it and was going to be okay. And she's like, I'm alive today because of him. He didn't do it.
Yeah.
There weren't cameras around. He was just by himself walking around. And it's just sad because people have been taught on the left to hate opposition so much. And not just to hate them, but to see them as evil. They can't see the reality of actual people, and that Donald Trump, while there are a lot of things that he may do that people don't like, personalities, bad decisions, that he's not this horrible, evil person. And they just are incapable of seeing that because of their own hatred, unfortunately. Quick traffic break, and then more with Christy Fulnecki. Christy Fulnecki is with us.
Yes.
You noted. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say. So they've got down. Carnival is going on in Latin America, and it's 4-day period of parades and festivities tied to the Catholic faith or faith. Catholic
wait,
faith.
where did that come from?
Don't read anything.
No, I did not say that, and he didn't say that.
But what I found very interesting about these parades that are going on down there is there are a lot of parade floats that are depicting Trump liberating Venezuela. And there are and there's a lot of social media postings that are going around because people are filming the parades and everything, but a lot of them, like there's one video published, social media showed participants performing a choreographed dance to the tune of Los Comunistas Donde Están, Where Are the Communists, a song released in January by the Venezuelan influencer that was actually played last week at the Hispanic Prosperity Gala hosted by Latino Wall Street at Mar-a-Lago. Some of the participants in the Almeria parade wore U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration costumes, while others were dressed in uniforms resembling the ones worn by Venezuelan military. And so they were like acting out all of these different scenarios and plays for entertainment of the U.S. coming in and capturing Maduro and liberating. And so I just once again think, yeah,
now that's probably not on CNN.
No.
Yes.
But here again, when you have these Democrat idiots over in Munich claiming Donald Trump is a dictator, you have down in South America numerous parades and celebrations that are depicting Trump actually liberating a country of a dictatorship. And this is a guy that not only is a dictator, Trump, but he loves dictators. Donald Trump loves dictators. Yet one after another, it seems as if they're the ones that find themselves in trouble with Trump. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's funny.
As always.
That's good visual. Yes.
Great pleasure.
All right. I'll be here next week.
All right, fantastic. Look forward to it, Christy Fulnecki. We do have Author of the Week coming up in the next hour. And then also, I'm going to have to step out the last half hour of the show, so Sarah Myers will be filling in for me. You get a little taste of what her show on Saturdays are like. So that's all upcoming. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. We've got Author of the Week coming up in, this hour. Sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And it is, it's somewhat timely. Of course, we're always bombarded with disinformation regarding the environment and this very unscientific political approach to science that runs counter to what so many of us grew up learning, just even about the scientific approach. Like, that is out the window. The new scientific approach, instead of having was it 5 or 7 steps? It's been so long, I've forgotten. Did you guys learn that, the whole scientific approach in school?
I can't think.
I remember we had to demonstrate it. I was in science club in 5th grade, and it was we had these projects. I don't remember what mine was, but
yes, of course.
yeah,
there's
7.
steps.
Okay, I thought there were 7 steps, and it all revolves essentially around being skeptical and questioning and re-questioning and challenging.
Create your hypothesis.
Yeah, and then you got to challenge it and so forth. And the new, at least according to the left, scientific method is listen to whomever you're told the expert is and don't question them. I mean, that's essentially it. If someone that is deemed a quote expert by the left, the left is the only collective that gets to anoint these individuals. Fauci's a tremendous example of this. Then you don't question them. That's the scientific method. Fauci himself said if you question him, you're questioning science. That should have, that expression of his beliefs right there should have disqualified him from ever being asked another question by any media outlet as an expert again. That is as anti-science as you can get. And aside from, he's a great example of the problem because he has a horrendous track record. You look into his approach when it came to dealing with HIV/AIDS. We talked on the show with Dr. John Lilly. In fact, during his dovetails with the AIDS situation in the 80s, AIDS crisis in the 80s, and hemophiliacs. When I grew up, I remember there was a kid, he was a neighbor kid, who was a hemophiliac. Hemophiliacs, their blood didn't clot, and so many of you, depending on your age, may have gone to school with one. Usually they couldn't play on the playground like the other kids because if they fell and bruised themselves or they cut themselves, it could have catastrophic results. And so they were recipients of blood transfusions quite often, and it was noted when this HIV/AIDS thing was popping up and everybody's trying to figure out where's it coming from, how's it getting transmitted. It became evident to a number of people that hemophiliacs had a disproportionately high case of a number of AIDS cases within the community. And so it was believed, perhaps, that was because of blood transfusions and that maybe this thing is in the blood. And so the government was told this. The government was advised that, hey, we believe this, and there was a stop put to it that was anti-science. The hemophiliac community was told, you're fine. You don't have to worry about it. Continue to get the blood transfusions. And the man who headed up that narrative was Fauci. And he almost single-handedly eliminated the human population who were hemophiliacs in this country because they listened to him, because he was a, quote, expert. And because he advised them that it was anti-science to believe that it has anything to do with blood and that you should continue to get blood transfusions, there shouldn't be any sort of testing or anything, it's all fine, killed off almost just eviscerated the landscape of people who were hemophiliacs. Now, you would think that would be someone that we didn't consider to be an expert any longer. Nope. We're told that someone with that track record is an absolute expert. And this, it's a mental disease that while the left really pushes it, sometimes people in the middle and even on the right can be susceptible to it because, well, I don't want to be accused of being an idiot, or, well, I mean, gosh, why would, yeah, he is a doctor and he is a scientist, and, well, there are other people that say the same thing. Everybody's echoing the same thing. I don't want to question science. That entire approach is the opposite of science. And it's that attitude that for so long suppressed the advancement of scientific advancements. Anyhow, our author of the week kind of, in terms of environmentalism, folds into all of this. So we'll be doing that here coming up in just a couple of moments. Sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And then I have to step out of studio after Author of the Week, and so the last part of the program, Sarah Myers is going to take care of.
That's
so to
right.
be just like a Saturday morning
It
for those of you
will.
that don't get an opportunity to hear Sarah and her show on Saturdays. You will have an opportunity coming up here in just a bit after Author of the Week. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one out there as well with a high near 72. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 52. And for Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 47. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, spring is right around the corner, and now is the time to tackle all of those repairs so you can actually enjoy the warmer weather. And those repairs also include your roof, because winter, it can be pretty rough on your roof with the wind, the snow, the fluctuating temps, and sometimes you can't really see roof damage from the ground, and that is why you need a trusted expert, and that's where the Pyramid team comes in. They offer free roof inspections, they always use high quality materials, and they'll shoot you straight on whether you need a whole new roof or maybe just a simple roof repair. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh today and schedule that free roof inspection. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
641. I'm Nick Reed, and it's Thursday, which means it's time for Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Our author today, Kevin Mooney, investigative reporter with Restoration News. He also writes for Daily Signal. I know many of you are familiar with that. And for the Commonwealth Foundation, a free market think tank based in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The book is Climate Porn. And that's a term I think many people might also be familiar with, as we have seen the way that so-called man-made climate change or global warming, give it any number of different names, has been utilized for political purposes, and just this obsession that so many people do have with this or with it. I want to thank you for being with us this morning, and start off, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about what prompted you to write the book.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things converging at one time. I'll start on the science side of the ledger. What we've seen, especially in the past few years, are more and more scientists, especially privately funded organizations that are free from government influence, coming up and taking a hard look at what the science actually says about warming and cooling trends. And that updated research that looks into astronomical influences, geological influences, the interaction between the two, tell us that on balance, most of the climate change we're experiencing and have experienced, whether it's warming or cooling, is driven mostly by natural variability. There could possibly be some human contribution, but it would be more at the margins. And that says to us that the whole premise of this scare designed to advance interventionist government policies is flawed right from the beginning. It's politically motivated, and it's based on what I think is aptly described as junk science, not actual science. So that's number one. Seeing more of those organizations stand up. The CO2 Coalition is one, Heartland Institute, another. There's really several. So I think that the updated science created an opening for me to do this book, but also for political reasons, the anniversary of 250 years of American independence, getting the United States out of these UN climate agreements that constrain and restrict America's military and economic power. What a better birthday gift to the United States of America than by restoring American independence and not letting people in Paris or other parts of the world raise our taxes and impose energy costs on us. So all of those things came to a head really at one time, which is why I saw an opening for this book.
It seems to me as if there are some parallels to the way that the issue of climate is used against political opposition and the way COVID was as well, in terms of this declaration that certain people are the experts, regardless of their track record of success in predicting things, and that you don't question them, that there really is no longer any scientific approach or any value in science of questioning things, that the anointed ones tell us what the truth is, and that is what we are all supposed to just believe, and anyone who says otherwise gets punished. They get deplatformed. They sometimes are hit with, the pocketbook, if you will. And I think we just really saw it for average people, even when it came to COVID. But I think this is something you write about this that has been an MO of the left when it comes to the issue of climate as well, correct?
Correct. In many ways, it's a book about victims. I tell the stories of scientists, honest academics, elected officials, average people, homeowners, property owners who have been victimized by these climate policies. And one thing I've found, there's a whole section in the book about ranchers out west who have had to fight for their property rights in the face of these really powerful government agencies. Green activist groups became very well dialed into government agencies at all levels. That's something that's only now gradually unwinding somewhat. But when you went toe-to-toe as an average person against these well-funded green groups, you are going toe-to-toe against the power and influence of the entire federal government. So my argument is that it's not climate as such that we should be concerned about. It's climate change policies and centralized planning and all these different anti-constitutional impulses that waltz all over the concept of due process. That reached its apex under the Obama and Biden administrations. The great hope here is that Team Trump can make as much headway in their deregulatory efforts as possible. But unfortunately, a lot of those folks will never get their reputations and their livelihoods back after what was wrought over the past couple of decades.
Seems as if either during Obama or Biden administrations, there were headlines because of high-profile military individuals and just talking about the need to focus for national security purposes on the environment and how that was the real threat to not just the United States, but to the world in the national security context. And I think a lot of thinking, reasonable people, dismissed that out of hand or at least approached it with a skeptical eye. But that being said, there actually are national implications to all of this, but they're implications that are the result of our enemies taking advantage of this political approach to dealing with the climate, and Russia being one of them. You're right about that.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of elements here. Very shrewdly, I think climate activists tried to tie in these national security concepts and say, oh, we have to have a green navy, or we have to have these new climate initiatives to get ready to the national security challenge that will come from climate change. Well, as it turns out, it was the climate change agenda that really jeopardized our national security. Ask yourself, what were the motivations for the Paris Accord? Sitting at the center of that was an agenda to constrain America's military and economic power and make us dependent on Chinese supply chains. Guess which country dominates those rare earth minerals that go into solar and wind and so-called renewable energy? So right from the beginning, the agenda was to make us convince us to make less use of our own domestic, homegrown natural resources and to become more dependent on these hostile foreign resources. And I think it's only now that we see a real awakening. So the national security question, I think, is a very important one.
We're talking with our author of the week, Kevin Mooney. The book is Climate Porn. This particular subject comes up every so often on the show, and there's almost a nostalgia to it because when we talk about it, we've got a text line, and listeners will go back to when they were in school and what the scare was. I know for me, acid rain was, the period of time of those, I guess, formative years where you really start to believe and you don't question. You're sort of absorbing the information maybe for the first time and thinking about it, and you just assume it's true. And for me, that was acid rain. And we get listeners, I remember global freezing, and I remember a hole in ozone, and all these different scare tactics. And I guess the downside, of course, is the fact that our schools are used for propaganda purposes, but it almost seems as if it's to the point that while on one hand, kids, they'll say, oh, yes, I'm worried about this, but I don't know, it seems like they don't really worry about it. It's not, when it comes down to it, something that they list, or even once we become adults, as a top 10 concern. Have they created this sort of law of diminishing returns where they still, even to this day, use schools and just promote the propaganda so consistently without actual results that even people who believe it, they don't really fear it?
Well, I think there's been sort of like an overindulgence of it. And also take a look at all the predictions that have not materialized. We're not underwater. The climate catastrophe has not emerged. How often has Al Gore predicted the end of modern civilization because of climate change? But here's the other problem, though, and this is one thing I get into the book. You look at the K through 12 system, certainly, obviously, higher education, but climate propaganda is still rampant in that curriculum. That the whole default position is that humanity is a blight to the planet. There should be no faith in the future. You shouldn't have kids. You should lower your carbon footprint and let elitists sort of govern your everyday move. That propaganda is still very in motion in our public school system, which I think is a real challenge. The other really devilish part of it, it teaches kids to reject the scientific method. Remember, if you have a theory or hypothesis, the way the scientific method works is you don't have the ending written and coerce whatever outcome you want. You let it rise and fall and be subjected to rigorous testing, and then you see what the result is. But they're telling kids to turn that upside down. It's like, no, this is the ending, and you will manipulate any which way to get to the desired political outcome. That's what's being taught, and I think that's very tragic for younger generations.
The term environmentalism is one that, like so many other terms or words, has been hijacked, turned upside down on its head by the left. And it's almost gotten to the point where I think they've been successful in labeling themselves as environmentalists, to where a normal person will roll their eyes, when in fact true environmentalism, you tend to find are those that actually live the earth and experience it and aren't necessarily of the left. And you've got a chapter titled Saving Environmentalism from Climate Activism, with national security as the ace in the hole. If you would talk a bit about that, because I think that's an important recognition as to what real true environmentalism is.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of good news, and I'm glad you brought up that chapter. There is certainly an honorable tradition of environmentalism and conservationism that predates the command and control approach that I think really began to take hold in the 1970s, beginning with the first Earth Day, that everything had to be done through centralized planning, and that private property owners had no business running their own land and organizing conservation initiatives. The good news is I think that honorable tradition of conservationism and environmentalism, as it is defined in the dictionary, is making a comeback. I see this a little bit with the offshore wind battles up and down the East Coast, where a broad cross-section of average citizens, not really even political people, but people who want their beaches preserved, want the scenery preserved, want their economy preserved, are up against these well-funded, self-described environmental climate activist groups, which is why I use that title, because it really turns things upside down. If you're somebody who wants to operate and advance conservation initiatives, you don't want these ugly offshore windmills, these big footprints there, then you're up against the self-described climate activist groups. They will say that everything has to be sacrificed, short-term environmental damage in exchange for this far-off supposed climate scare. And I think that's opened up some eyes that people are beginning to realize that these well-funded, well-established groups really are not about conservation and environmentalism. They're really about lining their own pockets. And if you look carefully, what they advocate is not good for the environment or for the climate. And I think there's been a real awakening there. And there's a whole national security angle to the offshore wind too, which I get involved in the chapters as well. So there's definitely a lot happening there.
We're talking with Kevin Mooney. The book is Climate Porn. What do you find as someone who is really focused in on the truth and the reality and consequences of so many of these policies? What are there any sort of elevator pitch examples as to how messed up things actually are out there? In other words, misconceptions that people generally have regarding the environmental movement or the environment itself.
Well, let me go back to the offshore wind for a moment, because I think you can say to average people, and like I say, I see a broad cross section of citizen activists finally really getting themselves organized, who can look at these things and say, if you care about rural open spaces, as you care about conservation and efficient, smart use, the last thing in the world you want is what the environmental groups / climate groups are advocating. Look at how damaging the offshore winds are to parts of the Jersey Shore. Now, fortunately, some of that's been stopped, but you're talking about contraptions that are bigger than the Eiffel Tower that'll get in the way of the fishing industry, the tourism industry, the economy, and just ruin the beachfront properties for all those people who've invested so much into their private homes. So I think once the political becomes personal, it really begins to impact people's daily lives, their standard of living, their quality of life. That's when eyes begin to open, and I think that's starting to happen. So I guess that's my big elevator pitch to say, when someone is a self-described climate environmental activist, start to ask some hard questions about what they're really pursuing. It has very little to do with the environment, everything to do with lining their pockets.
Yeah, I mentioned we were talking about this recently, and I don't remember what launched the conversation, but it had to do with Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, and we were laughing, in fact, about this idea that polar bears were drowning because of glaciers melting, and just the vast misconceptions about polar bears themselves, and how much of this real easily manipulated population, emotionally speaking, it can be when you have things like, oh, look at the polar bears drowning. I know you've written about that, specifically the polar bear stuff and Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth.
Yeah, well, I do have a section, one of the chapters, when Al Gore got his Academy Award for his documentary. But according to Academy standards, when you're using animation, it has to be rooted in facts. And my argument is that the Hollywood Academy violated its own standards when they gave Al Gore that award, because what he's depicting on screen is complete fiction. Number one, the polar bear populations are actually going up in certain parts of the world. Number two, this idea that they're actually, hunkered down on these detached little ice patches is also science fiction. So, but it does play to emotions. It does excite senses, and it's designed to motivate the big public policy changes. I'll tell you the dirty little secret about the whole polar bear thing. Aside from the fact that their population is actually very healthy and is growing, in those areas where it has declined, I hate to be macabre about this, but you do interviews with the Eskimos, and they'll ask you, is human activity having an impact on polar bear populations? Their answer is yes, we're hunting them. So,
Right.
So you can say that there's a human contribution to it, but for completely different reasons.
Kevin Mooney, any final thoughts, what you'd like folks to take away from climate porn?
What I would like to say, there's a very serious point to be standing behind that kind of cheeky title that I put down there, that just as, conventional pornography is a distortion of the natural act, I think climate pornography is a distortion of the scientific method, and it translates into things that are very damaging for average everyday people, and it's an insult to the scientific method. My great hope is that here on the anniversary of American independence, we see a serious movement back in the direction of restoring our independence, restoring honesty in science. And my great hope is that we'll be able to celebrate the tricentennial in another 50 years, because we'll be rejecting junk science and getting back to political independence.
Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Again, thank you, Kevin Mooney. The book is Climate Porn for Springfield's Talk. 1041, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well with a high near 72. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 28. For your Friday, sunny skies with a high near 52, and taking a look at Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 47. Now, Nick had to step out for the last part of the show. My name is Sarah Myers. I'm the executive producer over here at Springfield's Talk 1041. If you like this show, you can always tune in every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. I have my own show. Earlier this week, we talked about the moment involving Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at the Munich security conference, and she was asked what many would consider was a very basic question about national security and whether the United States would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion. Now, at the time, the focus on that clip was her hesitation, the lack of clarity, the inability to give a straight answer. But what's come out since then actually makes that moment just what I would consider a whole lot worse, because now we're learning more about what went into that appearance and how the media has rushed to protect her afterwards. Now, if you missed that original AOC audio, here it is just as a refresher.
That this is of course a very long-standing policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
Now, that wasn't a trick question for her. It wasn't some obscure policy debate. Any lawmaker who's serious about national leadership should be able to articulate something. Even if they mess up, they should be able to articulate something about how they think through that decision, how they think through their answer. And that wasn't the only issue during her remarks. She confused the Trans-Pacific Partnership with the Transatlantic Alliance, which are two very different frameworks. She also misstated basic geography, claiming that Venezuela sits below the equator when it does not. And here's the part that didn't come out right away. New reporting shows that this wasn't an unprepared moment for AOC. The Daily Caller reported yesterday that AOC reportedly spent months preparing for this conference. She worked closely with Matt Duss. He is the former foreign policy advisor to Bernie Sanders. So according to this Daily Caller report, they connected roughly 6 times through video calls and in-person meetings after her invitation arrived. This was intentional preparation for a global security audience. So she wasn't being caught off guard. This was the polished version of AOC. And yet, instead of asking harder questions, much of the media rushed to minimize what happened. Now, the New York Times, they originally called it a stumble. Just a stumble, no big deal. And then a day later, one of the reporters over at the New York Times did what I would call a rehab story just to make her look better. And some of the quotes from that New York Times article say, "The way her performance was microscopically dissected through the lens of what it meant for a hypothetical White House campaign frustrated AOC. She said she worried that her message was being lost in all the commotion." What message? Seriously, what message there? So what is this? Is this the New York Times acting as the PR agent for AOC? It's exactly what most of us would come to expect from the New York Times and its group of so-called reporters. But reporters shouldn't be rooting for a side. And that brings us to the reaction from The View, where the focus wasn't on accountability, but it was on excuses. And that's what you would expect from the squawk box over at The View. And of course, they also decided to take the opportunity to bash on Trump when he shouldn't even be in this conversation. But obviously, they had to deflect to something. So here is The View defending AOC.
My mother used to say, don't spit up in the air, it comes back in your face. Okay? Check him out before you start attacking AOC. Who, by the way, it sounded a little homina, but, you know, compared to him, it's like Mensa.
Well, I think mispronouncing a word is totally different than not knowing your position on Taiwan. And what's important is how you recover from something. You know, Trump, he has done things. He has continued on with his speech and then continued on to meet with world leaders.
Yeah.
So the recovery is what mattered, and the AOC just didn't have a recovery.
No, but he does it over and over again. How about the quantity of times?
Let's point out that, you know, he is the president. Yeah. And he's been the president before.
For 25 years, it seems.
But so my point is that can take humana from Congress people and stuff. You don't have yourself together, that's on you. Can't take it from the guy who says he's the leader of the free world. It's harder to take.
So the defenders over there at The View, they say, oh, well, she's just a congresswoman. Yeah, they're right. She is just a congresswoman, but she is also being floated as a potential Democrat presidential nominee in 2028. Recent polling, and we talked about this in the 7 a.m. hour with Christy Fulnecki, but recent polling shows Kamala Harris. She is leading at 27.5%. You've got Gavin Newsom out there at 22.7%, and AOC setting in third place at 9%. Now, is that a commanding lead? No. But is it politically insignificant? Also, no. It makes her a real contender. And here's the bottom line. A serious presidential candidate should be able to articulate a position on defending one of America's, what some would say, most crucial allies against China, especially after months of preparation. Foreign policy isn't optional for a president. National security isn't something that you just learn on the job or you learn as you go, which has also been a defense from Democrats regarding AOC's comments. And global leadership, it requires much more than slogans and vibes. And for someone like AOC, who has been openly complaining for months about how the United States is treating Venezuela, I guess she doesn't actually really care about it, seeing the fact that she can't even point to it on a map. Springfield's Talk 1041. Springfield's Talk 1041. My name is Sarah Myers, filling in for Nick Reed for the last part of this hour. Caroline Leavitt, she shredded a CBS reporter for suggesting that President Trump has never falsely been called a racist. This happened on Wednesday during a press briefing, ironically enough, right before a Black History Month reception. Take a listen.
Falsely and consistently called a racist by the scoundrels and lunatics of the radical left, Democrats all. It was always my pleasure to help Jesse along the way. Where or when does the president believe he's been falsely called racist?
You're kidding, right? I will pull you plethora of examples. I'm going to get my team in that room to start going through the internet of radical Democrats throughout the years, Ed, who have accused this president falsely of being a racist. And I'm sure there's many people in this room and on network television across the country who have accused him of the same. In fact, I know that because I've seen it with my own eyes. And the president very much looks forward to having an event later this afternoon at 3 p.m. to celebrate Black History Month and to talk about how his policies are advancing opportunity and prosperity for all Americans through record tax cuts, through the Trump accounts that all Americans can access regardless of race. These are a great thing for the next generation of Americans. The president has also awarded hundreds of millions of dollars in additional funding to strengthen educational outcomes at historically Black colleges and universities across the country. Again, the president is protecting the hard-earned benefits of the 2.4 million Black veterans who honorably served in our nation's armed forces by reducing the backlog of veterans waiting for their VA benefits and for their home loans through the Department of Veterans Affairs. So there is a lot this president has done for all Americans regardless of race, and he has absolutely been falsely called and smeared as a racist, and I'm happy to provide you those receipts, and we gladly will right after this briefing.
It is remarkable that people like this truly exist, and they want to tell us what is right and wrong, and then they are just dumbfounded that the vast majority of Americans, well, they just don't trust the media. It's because they do stunts like this. I guess that reporter missed Trump's entire first term. They called him a racist all day, every day, nonstop for over 4 years. Just this week, you had Chuck Schumer out there claiming that Trump and the GOP were trying to implement Jim Crow 2.0 by trying to require voter ID and proof of citizenship for registered voters. And Democrats, they're always going on about reckless language. Well, what about that reckless language? Requiring an ID, something that you need to board a plane or buy alcohol, open a bank account. Well, that's Jim Crow 2.0. And here is a very short montage of Democrats calling Trump racist. You'll hear Biden, Don Lemon, AOC, to name a few. And keep in mind, this isn't even close to exhaustive. I didn't even include Hillary Clinton or Gavin Newsom, the commentary from The View, or Tim Walz, because frankly, that would take the entire segment.
Racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire.
This is CNN Tonight. I'm Don Lemon. The president of the United States is racist.
Trump's rise, like an avowed racist president's rise to power.
Do you think Donald Trump is racist?
I do.
Donald Trump is also very old and a racist and a neo-Nazi.
It confirmed that he is truly a racist.
Yeah, so I do think that he's racist. Is it surprising to me that so many African Americans are supporting him? A bit.
But it's where Donald Trump is. He has always been a racist. He has a long history of racism.
Those are, ways of him saying, oh, it's white power. It's what I want to do. Those are racist remarks.
So after hearing that, after years of that, to have a reporter suggest that Trump is falsely claiming that he has been called racist is just absolutely stunning. Do they not pay attention to what their own media outlets are reporting? Caroline Leavitt, she did a great job. She did what the press should be doing. She is confronting false premises, instead of playing along with them. And I think that's what the part that seems to really frustrate the media the most. This is why people have turned to alternative media. And this is why independent outlets just keep continuing to grow and grow and grow. Because Americans remember what they've heard. They remember it. They remember what they were told by these same media outlets. And they don't appreciate being told that it never happened. Before we end the program, want to give you another reminder that we are giving away Trace Adkins tickets. He will be at Black Oak Amphitheater, and it's going to be a fantastic concert. It's his 30th anniversary tour. We're doing a text-to-win contest for that. So if you would like to register to win a pair of tickets, all you have to do is text the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. That phone number is 417-447-5743. The keyword for today is Adkins, Adkins. Once again, all you have to do is text the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 417-447-5743. We also have a bonus chance for you to win tickets up at KSGF.com. I am officially out of show. I hope you have a good rest of your week. Nick will be back tomorrow. Springfield's Talk 104.1 Glenn Beck is coming up next. I'm Sarah Myers.